Roughly speaking, Reloaded is a story about tuning the Savior. The first film is the story of the Savior's birth. The second film is the Savior's tuning. It's about fixing a bug, what you'd call a bug in computing. When an unexpected program occurs, it's about correcting that information.
This scene where Trinity leaps out with such force. I've got a huge question about this. She shoots straight out through the glass with a ton of momentum. She blasts straight out, then changes her posture midair. That's sci-fi, right?
Huh? What do you mean?
I mean, normally you blast straight out with momentum and then change your posture midair. That's sci-fi, right? Because you can't usually do that, like rotating your body like that.
You can.
Can you do it?
You can.
What do you mean?
Even cats can flip themselves over.
Oh, really?
Huh? You're already convinced? You can flip by adjusting the width between your lower body and upper body.
I see. I had this idea that unless you decide the rotational momentum right at the moment you jump, you can't do it. So when I saw Trinity's jump, I was like, that's totally sci-fi. But then I got shut down real quick. Here, it looks cool, but right here, I'm already in total chaos. So they're guiding the Nebuchadnezzar from the control tower, right?
Yes, that's right.
We talked about how you can see inside the Matrix from the real world, right? But you can't see the real world from inside the Matrix, right? That was the definition. So I was like, wait, you can see the real world from inside the Matrix here. He says, we'll open the gate. So they're monitoring it, right? So I was like, huh? I didn't understand it at all. This isn't the Matrix, right?
It's not the Matrix. It's within a similar program, though.
Okay, good. So that got debunked too.
Well, I didn't exactly debunk you or anything.
This movie, The Matrix Reloaded. Way too many love scenes.
Too many.
Like, what is this?
Anyway, the point was that they wanted to express affection and love. That's what part 2 is.
Between a man and a woman?
Between a man and a woman. They needed to express one-to-one love. So, it comes up later. But there have been various saviors up to now. 6 of them, I think. The 5th one was designed to love all humanity. But they changed this ×1 a bit. And they look into this idea that the parameters have been shifted toward one-to-one love. That's what the old guy does.
That old guy? The architect.
The architect, yes.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I think they want to emphasize that.
They deliberately stuff in an almost excessive number of love scenes here. And then at the end you realize that's what they wanted to say, huh?
That's right.
True. He says it at the end, doesn't he? Like, that's not the point. This part, Morpheus' speech, like getting everyone fired up with woo.
Morpheus is good. What I can explain here is probably the content of these words. There are actually 2 ways of thinking in this matrix, and I think this is one of them. This guy says, it wasn't the road ahead that guided me. The road I walked guided me. What the heck does that mean? Normally you'd think the road ahead guides you, but he says the road he walked guided him. So his way of thinking is that the future isn't decided. It's that idea that we build our own future. The other way of thinking is that there's a destiny that's decided from the start. There are these 2, and he was really pushing that one hard. That's what this is about. This part has a really deep meaning. It comes up again later.
I won't say anything here, but please remember this counselor well. A counselor is an important person living in Zion, so an ally of humanity. Next.
Oh, Bane.
Bane. What is this?
This guy is already Agent Smith.
Ah, I see.
That's right. Agent Smith has possessed someone else and come over here in that state.
Got it.
He's taken over Bane.
So that's how it is.
The original Bane got assimilated by Smith. In that assimilated state, Smith came back over here via a phone call, so he's possessing him.
But with Smith, like by design, if he takes someone over, they become Smith, right? I want you to do that.
Like, this side will turn into Smith too, kind of.
Yeah, isn't it?
Seems like that's not it.
This is really hard for me. Seraph, right? You know, when I first saw this in theaters, I was like, Yaku Mitsuru?
True. This Seraph is incredibly cool, right? And this is a program, you know. Seraph says something like, I wanted to know whether you really are the savior, right? And then he says, if you don't fight, you can't know your opponent. Even though he's a computer program, he's saying you won't understand unless you experience it. Like, you can't see the true essence with knowledge alone, or that the world is that complex. He's probably saying something like that. This explanation comes up again later too.
This scene. You've heard stories about people seeing ghosts or angels here, right? This is the kind of thing urban legend fans can't resist.
That's exactly what it's about.
You've heard stories about people seeing ghosts or angels, right? They happen because vampires and werewolves and aliens and all of them are trying to inject unauthorized programs into the system. Urban legend fans watch this part, and
Ah, I see. That's what it is. This Oracle, she's in a really interesting position. This one is actually not a big deal program when you look at the whole system. But in the story, she's a hugely important figure, right? But inside the computer, her priority is an extremely low program. But like Seraph earlier, she uses things like backdoors. To put backdoor simply, you can't do that unless you have the authority. Which means it's a program that's been given pretty high-level privileges, even though it's shabby. That's what's interesting to start with. So she can already do things like move the world around on her own, mess with things around there. She can do that herself. That's what I find interesting. This was interesting too. I actually really liked the Merovingian. The Merovingian says choice is an illusion. There were two earlier, right? The one who says the future is decided, and the one who says it isn't. The Merovingian is the it's decided guy. Going back a bit, that oracle earlier says something like, you can't see beyond a choice you don't understand, and I don't really get it. It suggests that maybe humans might be able to understand chaos. I think it's hinting that the computer has that expectation. I'm the same way, but I think things are decided from the start, physically. If something moves, the next action is necessarily determined in linkage with it. So in our minds too, everything should be determined. But the computer seems to think it might not be like that. And the one it entrusts with that is this oracle. Maybe if it's humans, we might be able to understand that chaos and control it. I think that's what it's saying. At that point, to talk about it in a way that fits the computer world, this kind of thing is called a fractal. A fractal is like a fractal figure, snowflakes, and those kinds of fractal shapes. It's the thing where the same shape repeats recursively, but to put it simply, you know how there's a coastline? Like from an airplane, the coastline looks like this, right? And then, okay, give me the length of this coastline, but nobody can do it. It's infinite. That's what a fractal is. You think you'll know if you measure from here, but then you say, let's zoom in. It's detailed. You zoom in, right? And then something even more complex appears. And if you trace that, it gets even longer again. Then you finish measuring, right? And then you zoom in again. It gets even finer. Even if you go down to the size of atoms, there's still beyond that. That's what it is. Another analogy, a circle, in computer terms, is a polygon, right? A pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, octagon, and so on. You just keep making it finer. No matter how fine you make it, if you zoom in, it's still a polygon. You can't really evaluate that shape. You can if it's a square or something you truly drew on a computer, but things that exist in nature, you can't. Infinite length, actually. That's as far as humans can understand right now. This is called a fractal, and you could even say that understanding that is what the computer's matrix world is trying to do, but so generally what he says is correct. The future is decided, but we can't understand it. But the oracle is saying it might be possible to do that. Anyway, I want you to remember that there's that kind of fractal way of thinking. People like Morpheus on this side think some kind of judgment or choice is the start, but the Merovingian isn't like that. He says you're just following what was decided from the start. You're following what you were told. You don't actually understand what's inside, so you can't see the future either. Why did you come here? He says, tell me the reason you came here. But then he says, that's not the reason you came here. It's the means. This is where it gets interesting. He says, you came here because there's a reason you need the keymaker. You don't know that reason. You came here because you were instructed to, is what he's saying. I want you to remember that fractal from earlier. But the one step ahead reason is what Morpheus and the others said. So what the Merovingian said is the reason even further ahead. So he's saying, for every reason, there's an even further reason.
It's a pretty deep scene.
There's probably some truth to it. You don't get an answer, but you can understand it.
In this scene, why can agents dodge bullets? I want to get into that.
We're finally closing in.
I was playing Biohazard, you know. Back then, there was this guy called Wesker, and you challenge him to a fight. No matter how many shots you fire, it's the same as this situation. He can dodge them.
They're insanely good at dodging, right?
Yeah, if you show any sign, like I'm gonna shoot, he dodges. So even if you try to catch him off guard and fire, he still dodges. Like, well, of course, because you know that in the game I'm controlling, a bullet just got fired. That kind of feeling. That I can't beat this guy feeling is probably what this dodging state in the Matrix is.
Morpheus can cut with a sword, right? And punches land too, only bullets don't hit. What I want you to imagine is that this Matrix world is kind of like a computer program, a game world. In that case, they always dodge guns. But no matter how you think about it, that's weird, right? Because it's definitely faster than a sword. Same with a punch. This is probably the system's spec here, I think. What that means is, I think the processing is separated between physical weapons and these projectile weapons. Even that biohazard game the producer mentioned earlier. Programmers would get it, but the processing for shooting a handgun and the processing for using a knife are probably different too. So each actually has its own specs, and we think we're all living within the same physical phenomena, right? But the computer world is totally different. Each has its own specs. Now computers are getting faster and faster, and they're getting closer and closer to our world. For example, in old racing games, there's no causal relationship between the tires spinning and moving forward. It's just for show. But in modern racing games, the tires actually spin, and they calculate that force, and calculate friction too, and they realize it in a way that's close to our physical phenomena. That's modern racing games. In fact, when an agent is attacked with a gun, there's a system that automatically dodges in sync with the gun. So, to use that Wesker example from earlier, I think they dodge at the same time the gun trigger is pulled. It's a single mechanism, up to and including the dodging part. That's how it's spec'd, so they can dodge only handguns. I think that's probably correct.
Come to think of it, Neo doesn't use projectiles.
It's pointless. They already know. They understand the world.
And then contact with the architect.
So you end up at the architect, right? I remember thinking, no way a guy like this shows up.
You thought that, right? Me, I really want to say this until my mouth gets sore. What I showed you earlier, this, because the counselor shows up super early, right? And then at the very, very end, you get this architect. Like, there's no way I remember him. Like, his hair was white, I guess. And how am I supposed to remember whether he had a beard or not? Like, this guy who showed up earlier.
At this point, you're just a complainer.
Like, I thought he was an ally, you know? In my head, it turns into a totally different story. Like, was the architect in Zion from the start, or what? It's all gibberish. So they explain a bunch of stuff here. So you are the result of an irregular anomaly. What we originally sought was mathematical precision. Thus you were inexorably led here. You didn't answer my question. How surprising, interesting, sharper than the others.
I don't even know what's sharp about it.
The others. Did he think he'd answered the question just now?
Up to now, the previous ones were satisfied with that answer.
Like, I see.
It was probably like, alright then, should we reset everyone? Reloaded, or something. So maybe he was surprised, right? Like, a slightly different one showed up, you know.
It gets into the detailed backstory of how the Matrix was made. And if I am the father of the Matrix, she is the mother. She? Like, if you ask, is that the Oracle? The architect goes, don't. Oh, so it's a pretty dead loveless marriage, huh?
No, this isn't a married couple thing.
Is that so?
In the first place, they're programs. The architect is.
What do you mean?
Originally, the architect is like the designer who created this matrix. He's failed a few times. So he says, since there was no choice, he made this sloppy program called the Oracle. And when he made a sloppy program, somehow it worked. So, in terms of how much influence they had on creating the current matrix, I have a lot. And she has a lot too. So in that sense, if I'm the father, then she'd be the mother. That's the idea.
Then why here does he go don't? Like, he's embarrassed about the whole, like, a married couple thing or something. Like,
don't say that, or something. It's not like that. No, that's not it. He doesn't like the word oracle, you know.
Stop that.
That's what it is, right? It's not because their relationship is cold or anything. When he says don't, it's because he's the one who made the oracle. So from his perspective, he didn't make it with the intention of it being an oracle. He says he made an intuitive program with a low parameter for seeking accuracy. So from his point of view, it's not a program that prophesies. So he's saying, don't call it that.
So that's what the don't is about.
Yeah.
This has already become a totally different movie in my head.
What the architect is explaining is that the savior is a collection of bugs. Earlier there was talk of anomaly, but apparently it means a phenomenon that's abnormal and can't be analyzed or explained in terms of laws or theory. But that points to most things. We have relativity and various other things we know, right? There are tons of phenomena that can't be explained by just that, to the point that there are more of those. This points to science that hasn't been elucidated yet. He says what he originally sought was a mathematically harmonious world. The savior was guided by the machines, so you were brought here inevitably, just as we predicted. That's the kind of thing he says. And here, you didn't answer my question, and that's why he's surprised and says you're sharper than the others. Because Neo is asking, what is my role? He went one step further, so he's a little surprised. Neo is asking for the reason beyond that. So that's why he says, sharp. When he said, why are you here? What he said was something clear. Our setup is why. You were brought here whether you liked it or not. That's the answer. right? That's what he said. And then Neo says, you didn't answer why I'm here. What Neo wanted to ask was the reason they arranged it, so he'd be brought here whether he liked it or not. That's why he's surprised. This applies to the whole story, but they keep poking at this every time. That there's a reason beyond the reason. This comes up over and over, that fractal talk from earlier. The Matrix is old, and this is the 6th anomaly. So he's saying he's broken it 5 times. An anomaly is what causes fluctuations in the simplest equilibrium of the entire system. So they look at the immediate stuff and update by fixing small bugs. But you can't just leave those small bugs as they are. That's what he's saying here. If you leave them, the fluctuations keep increasing more and more, and it ends up in a state where we can't control our computer. That's what he's saying. Originally, the harmonious world the machines created didn't work. It failed. It ended up that way as a result of humans' imperfect nature. Because of humans' imperfection, the mathematically harmonious world we envisioned didn't work. It failed. They realized that an imperfect posture was necessary in order to guide humans well. So they made an intelligence with a low parameter for seeking perfection. And he says, that's the oracle. Probably the explanation, an intelligence with a low parameter for seeking perfection, is directionally a little off. Or rather, it's a bit hard to understand as phrasing, and it refers to an intuitive program. In other words, he means a program that makes statistical judgments. This is the oracle, the mother of the matrix. This approach worked, but because it creates anomalies, if left alone, it became a threat to the system. So he went to great lengths to explain that this cycle became necessary. That's what the savior system is what he's saying. And then he says, we'll provide you with the code, you go back to Zion and rebuild it again with a few people, that kind of thing. He's saying, choose one. Either take that option or refuse it. Go save the person you love and wipe out all of humanity. But he's making him choose, with the hope that by giving him a choice, there might be some new innovation. They don't know either. They just act like they knew from the start. That's the truth. I think the film depicts that too. The computer actually doesn't understand anything at all, and it's trying various things in hopes of it. You can tell it's trying because he explains it. He said the previous one was given the attribute of loving the whole world. They probably taught him that from right after he was born. And he says this time's Neo was made so that the attribute of loving one person is stronger. So, for him, that's a new challenge. Maybe the computer thought a heart that cares about the world might change the world. But no, wait. Maybe actions like loving the people close to you, relationships between people, not one-to-many but one-to-one relationships, are the basic thing. He wanted to think about various things and try them out, you know. So they made a Neo who loves one person. They're expecting something now. So if he actually goes and destroys Zion again, and goes down the path of saving humanity, that wouldn't be a problem. But what they were hoping for was a new development. Computers are, in fact, always hoping humans will bring a new development. Give him one-to-one love, and the anomaly might come up with an answer. And in the film, he does come up with a new answer. Neo does. So in reality, they have that hope, but they also keep giving up as an option too. They prepared both, basically. Here he talks about hope or something. He says arrogantly like, for humans, it's the greatest source of strength and the source of weakness, or whatever. But at the same time that it's bound up with humanity's imperfect parts, it's also illogical behavior and intuition, and an unexplainable ability that machines can't do. So probably the machines still don't understand human thought at all. In this world, they don't understand it at all. So that's what he calls a source of strength. They think there's no basis for challenge, hope, but they're saying there might be a possibility that it isn't like that. Anyway, the machines were at an overhead limit, and there was nothing more they could do. So, for now, they're asking humans for spontaneous improvement.
And here, they're falling, but right when it's like she's gonna land on the car, it's shocking.
He catches her, huh?
This part here, if she just keeps falling, she'll slam into the car with force, right?
That's pretty tough too.
Falling speed. I'm thinking Neo came crashing in from the side at a speed even faster than that falling speed, right?
Probably like 100 times or 1,000 times that speed.
Right as she started falling, from like hundreds of times farther away than that building, he flew in instantly and stopped Trinity from crashing. With even more momentum than her crashing into the car, I feel like Neo is slamming into Trinity, aren't he?
It is.
That's what's happening, right?
He'd be shattered if it were real. That part is probably within the range Neo can control, I think.
The car crash scene. This one, I could swallow it.
Oh, is that so?
Because you're riding in the back of a truck, you have a head-on collision with a truck in front, and Morpheus and the Keymaker get thrown forward from where they were, by inertia, if this car was doing 100 kilometers per hour, I think it'd be like minus 100 kilometers per hour.
He went flying 100 kilometers, huh?
So that made me go, okay, so what happens after this? Neo flies in, grabs him by the scruff of the neck, and flies off. But since he's coming in from behind, maybe it got mitigated a bit.
Ah, I see.
Like minus 100 kilometers per hour or so.
I see.
Trinity comes from the side, so I was like, how do I even explain this? But I'll let this part slide.
I think this would normally be impossible too.
No, in terms of vectors, there's a part I can be a little forgiving about, but the problem is, it's right here, grabbing him by the scruff of the neck, the collar. That collar's gonna tear, man. I didn't get this part. When she says now we're even, what do you mean even?
In the previous film, Trinity brought him back to life with a kiss, right?
Didn't he come back to life because he's the savior?
No, he came back to life with a kiss.
Oh, I see.
That's right. This is deep too, but what they're saying in the film is, it's not your own power, that you exist. They keep saying that the power around you is what makes you exist. So the savior was made by Morpheus, and by this guy, and by the surrounding environment. That's the idea. For example, last time, Trinity's kiss awakening him as the savior is like, he awakened because it was demanded, that kind of feeling. It's not like he had the talent from the start. That's why the Oracle says at first, you are not the savior. It connects properly from there. So really, maybe it wasn't something in the regulations, but they were able to bring him back to life. I think that's what it's about.
And then here, what does this mean? I can feel their presence.
When he sends them, he got stopped by an electric current. And then here, after this, he passes out, right? I think they also said something like, Neo somehow has the same brainwaves as the person who's intruding, right? So he seems to be getting invaded. It was a scene that kind of hinted at that. Speaking of Agent Smith, he got destroyed in the previous film, right? By Neo. So is it like, when he got destroyed, they kind of intersected? And at that moment, he understood what Neo understood too. Which means he ended up learning how the system works. And using that, he can break away from it. So now he's not a servant of the Matrix. Or rather, he's no longer part of the system. He became an independent program. This is actually that everyone is saying the same thing. It's just that the direction they're saying it in is different. Everyone's saying the same thing. Smith fused with Neo, understood, and became free. But then it's like, freedom is just an illusion. You can't escape reason. You can't deny purpose. We can't exist without reason. This is basically the same as what the Merovingian and others are saying too. There's always a root. There's always a beginning, and everyone moves according to that. So they're saying you move according to your purpose. You can't escape from that. But still, everyone's hoping.